Hello, Steve Arts 89. Now, this is what I wanted to talk about today. Bedtime stories. We all know the hashtag Justice for Bedtime Stories thing got the album back in the charts, got it to #1 on iTunes, and it's got a lot of attention. And it's really great. Now, I had no idea this was happening. I just saw an article online basically saying that it was already at like #3 or something. I'm like, what? How did it happen? What? How did this happen? And I had a look, and then it was at #1. I'm like, oh wow, this is great. But then I saw some articles where people were sort of saying, how did this happen? That doesn't actually have the sales to actually do it. And I thought, what's happening here? Kind of don't care, because just the fact that it's back at #1 is just cool. And I was sort of looking into that, and some people said it's easy to research. You know, anyone can see the sales. I still can't find them. So, but I'm just going to assume that the hashtag got it some sales, and that's how it got there, and it's legit. And either way, it looks good. So I'm really happy because and I want to talk about, because Bedtime Stories, it's not my favorite Madonna album, but it has the special place in my heart of being really my first Madonna album. Because when I became a Madonna fan, Madonna had been around for a while, and I already kind of knew a lot of her albums. My sisters and nieces had been listening to them. Girls in the neighborhood had listened to them, so I heard them, and I got a lot of them on tape from people, which is what you did back in the day when you were a kid and you didn't have enough money to buy your own CDs. Your friends, who, if they had the album, they'd put it on tape for you, and then you'd give them a tape, and they'd tape it, and then you'd just go home and you'd have Madonna's album. But you, of course, wouldn't be able to skip to tracks, blah blah blah. So, I don't know if anyone out there actually remembers tapes, but I guess some Madonna fans would. But it was the first album that I knew was coming. It was the first album I waited for. The first album I went out on the day it was released. And I lived in a small town. We had no record store. We had no kind of department store that had a record section. So I had to travel to the city. I had to travel to Launceston from Georgetown, from Launceston, which is like a 45-minute, hour-long bus, to go up to the town to get the CD. I had to go to, I think I just went to a record department in a department store. I don't think I went to Allen's, which was the only music chain that we had in Australia that I remember, which then became Sanity. And I went and bought it, and I had to walk around town all day because the bus was like at the end of the day. So I spent the whole day in town just to get this one CD. And then I basically read all the lyrics from the booklet, because back then the booklets had a purpose of having the lyrics in them. And I read the lyrics on the bus on the way home. And then I got home and finally got to play the CD, like, 10 hours later or something, and sat down on my bed with the album and read through the lyrics to the songs and sang through them as I listened to them for the first time, which is the way you're supposed to listen to an album, and which is how music really should be delivered, not just in one track at a time, just the way they do it now. Is just, I really pity kids now who just don't have that album experience. And same thing with records. Records was the same, and then it just went to CDs and all that. That didn't really change until we got to digital, and it all became about singles and songs. And yeah, I don't like the way it is now. And yeah, call me old, okay, boomer, whatever. We had it better. So yes, I went up to the city and I saw this beautiful display. I'd never seen a display for like Madonna albums before, because, like I said, they'd already all been released and were old by the time I got into Madonna. And there was this beautiful display with it was all the colours of the album, the blue and the pink, and aqua or green, or what, I don't even know what that colour is. And it was like the bed head at the top, and then all the albums. I think there were rows of three, and it was just beautiful. And I got mine, and I came home, I listened to it, and I loved it. It was different, and I'd already heard that Madonna was taking a softer approach, because she had been bitch slapped so hard for erotica that she had to, or at least she didn't feel like taking on the world, and she just wanted to just make some nice music. I mean, probably with the exception of Human Nature, which precisely deals with that whole issue. She pretty much was just mellowing out and just focusing more on the music, which gave her a lot of credit at the time, which was good. And I just loved the album itself. I loved the colour of the plastic tray for the CD. It was just beautiful. Now, there is some oddness with the album cover. I've noticed with the re-release in the box set, and a lot of artwork, they have actually reversed it. And I also noticed the white outline, which I didn't understand, but then I heard later that in the US the album didn't have the green tray, it had a white tray, which is more like the one that they had for in Australia for Something to Remember. So, and I've actually kept, like, I threw out all my CDs, but I kept a couple of the coloured trays because they're rare. All the rest I threw out. These are my only CDs, and I had to put this album back in the cover just for this video because I got rid of them all, and they're all in those booklets, book things where you have all the pages and that, just to save space. I do that for all my CDs, my thousands and tens of thousands of DVDs, because I'm a collector, as you can see. I'm waffling, but just some facts on the charts, on the album and its charts. Basically, it came out in Australia on the 5th of November, America, or the UK and America on the 12th of November in 1994. I thought it came out later. I remember it being the summer of 95. It was the summer of 94, 95, because it came out as we were heading into summer in Australia. And I just know I wasn't at school because I took the day and went up, and because I used to have to get the bus to go to school every day. So this was a trip just to get this album. It debuted at number 3. It was a top 5 chart around the world, but I think the highest it got was number 3. It must have got number 1 somewhere, but I know in the US it was number 3. So it started off a bit slower than Erotica, but overall it lasted longer and did more sales. The first single was in September 94, and that was Secret, and that was, I think it was number 3 as well, and top 5 all over the place, and it was Madonna's 35th top 10 hit, which was a streak. Unfortunately, the next single, ironically, which was huge, Take a Bow, broke that streak by debuting at number 16, but then it stayed in the charts and did really well and was number 1 for 7 weeks. So I'm shocked that that was the one that debuted low and cost her her streak, because it did so well. But like the album, it kind of started off slow and then people liked it and it just kept going and kept going. I remember every week hearing that song number 1 on the charts and just being so happy and just being aware, just like, yeah, it was good. Because it wasn't sensationalized, it wasn't about sex, it wasn't about controversy, it was just a beautiful song, well crafted, well done, and Madonna hadn't had that sort of credibility in most people's eyes for a long time, especially since Erotica. Now, what else was I going to say? I got a whole bunch of little details. I love the album. It was actually shot, the cover, it was actually shot on her birthday. She was going for more of a Jean Harlow look, and it was a different approach, and a lot of people said she was easing away into Erotica. I'm sorry, from Erotica into Evita. So she was trying to soften her image, and then the next album was a ballads collection. So she really was softening up, but that's okay because she came back with Ray of Light later, and she never really lost her edge. But she just, I don't know what happened. Didn't realize till later how much the criticism and the attacks on Erotica actually made her doubt herself, and sort of shut down a bit as an artist. But she came back, but she did have that moment. Yeah, what else did I write? I write some notes. There must have been something more important. No, I can't see anything else. No, French photographer, can't pronounce his name, did the artwork. It was beautiful. I really, really love the colours. I don't know why, but it's one of my favourites. I kept it out sitting on my counter where I had like my stereo and everything for like a year or so, which is why this is not my original copy. My original copy is yellow because it was in the sun so much because it was always out. And then, of course, every album afterwards, I bought it, on the day it was released, and gave it the same treatment up until Music, where there were no longer lyrics in the booklet, and you had to look it up online. But fine, whatever. It was just a great experience. I loved the album. I loved the songs. The later 2 singles were not as lucky. Bedtime Story came out, and then the last single was, because that came out in February of 95, and Human Nature came out in June of 95, and they both didn't get into the top 40, which was like, what the hell? Both of them were banned, from my understanding, basically in the media, because she talked about people thought bedtime stories was about drugs because people were just so basic. They couldn't understand a song about exploring your unconscious and things like that. It had to be about drugs. So apparently it got banned because some people objected to it because they thought it was about drugs, which was ridiculous. I remember hearing that at the time and I thought that's rubbish. And then Human Nature was talking about the media, so of course the media wouldn't support it in radio play or anything else. So